Amidst the glittering city lights and towering skyscrapers of success, a seemingly invincible man carries a void that no fortune can fill. Despite having turned business dreams into reality, he finds himself bound to a legacy of loneliness and regret. The painful memory of failing to help his mother during a crucial moment in his childhood. Prepare to follow a journey filled with emotions, challenges, and inspiring discoveries. You will be mesmerized by the transformation of this businessman who, touched by a dream etched in glass, embraces the mission of transforming lives. Stay with us until the end and discover how the courage to face his own demons, combined with a simple act of empathy, can ignite the flame of hope in hundreds of hearts. Michael Thompson gazed at the city of New York through the enormous windows of his office on the top floor of the building that bore his name. At 45, he was the epitome of American business success. Neatly trimmed grey hair, an impeccable Italian suit, and a fortune estimated in billions. The empire he built began with a small electronics store 20 years ago and now spanned the entire country. But on that December afternoon, not even the golden glow of the sunset reflected on the skyscrapers could ease the weight he carried in his chest. His secretary Rachel had just left another invitation for an industry award on his desk. It would be the 5th time he received the title of Businessman of the Year. Another trophy for the collection, he thought, running his fingers over the embossed paper. What no one knew was that each professional achievement only deepened the emptiness he felt. His mornings began at 5, his nights ended after 11, and his weekends were filled with strategic meetings and business dinners. He picked up the photo frame he kept on his desk, the only personal photo among so many accolades and certificates. In it, a white-haired woman with a gentle smile held a young Michael by the shoulder in front of a small grocery store. Mrs. Angela, his mother, had worked for 30 years in that establishment to support him alone after his father left when Michael was still a child. "Forgive me, Mom," he whispered to the photograph. The memory of that specific day still haunted him. He was starting his first business when his mother needed financial help to save the grocery store. But he, focused on growing his business, couldn't gather the necessary money in time. The store closed, and his mother was never the same again. The intercom buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. It was Rachel again. "Mr. Thompson, the meeting with the Chinese investors is confirmed for 6 p.m. "Thank you, Rachel. Can you cancel it, please? Reschedule for next week." "But, sir, they came all the way from Shanghai, especially for—" "Rachel," interrupted Michael, his voice betraying a weariness that went beyond the physical. "For the first time in 20 years, I need an afternoon off. Cancel all of today's appointments." The silence on the other end of the line revealed his secretary's surprise. In 2 decades, Michael had never cancelled an important meeting. "As you wish, Mr. Thompson. Should I call your driver?" "No, I'll walk for a bit. I need to think." Michael put the photograph back in the drawer, grabbed his coat and left the office. In the elevator, as he descended 40 floors, he remembered the words his mother always repeated. "Son, money can't buy back lost time." As he stepped out of the building, he was greeted by the typical drizzle of New York. The December chill seeped through his Italian coat, but he didn't mind. He began walking aimlessly down 5th Avenue, blending into the crowd of hurried people, heading home. He passed by storefronts decorated for Christmas, ignored the honking cars and the city's noise. His mind wandered between memories of the past and questions about the present. What had he done with his life? He had achieved everything he had dreamed of professionally, but at what cost? He had no family of his own, his relationships were limited to business partnerships, and the last time he had a meal without discussing work was so long ago he couldn't even remember. The drizzle began to thicken, and Michael sought shelter under the awning of a store. That's when his eyes caught something unusual. A small toy shop, one of those old-fashioned ones that seemed to have stopped in time. The window was decorated with a simple Christmas tree, and a few lights blinked timidly, creating reflections on the foggy glass. Michael was observing the shop window when he noticed a peculiar movement. A boy, who couldn't have been more than 8 years old, was drawing something on the foggy glass. His small, nimble fingers traced lines with surprising precision for someone so young. He wore simple but clean clothes, a faded blue t-shirt, patched jeans at the knees and sneakers that had seen better days. The businessman approached quietly, intrigued by the boy's concentration. On the glass, a house began to take shape. It had a pointed roof, large windows, a chimney with a spiral of smoke, and most strikingly, a huge garden full of flowers. "Hi, little artist. What are you drawing?" asked Michael, surprised by the softness in his own voice, so different from the authoritative tone he usually used in meetings. The boy was startled for a moment, but something in the man's gentle smile made him relax. His lively, expressive brown eyes met Michael's. "It's the house I dream of living in one day, with my mom," he replied, adding more details to the drawing. "Here there will be a garden full of colorful flowers, and over there," he pointed to a specific area of the drawing, "that will be my art studio." "Art studio? You want to be an artist?" "Yes, sir. I want to make big paintings, the kind that hang in museums. My school teacher says I have talent, but—" The boy hesitated, his smile wavering slightly. "But," Michael encouraged, "but we don't have money to buy painting supplies, so I draw wherever I can. Sometimes in my school notebook, other times here on the glass while I wait for my mom." Michael felt something stir inside him. "And where is your mom now?" "She works over there." The boy pointed to a commercial building across the street. "She's a cleaner. She finishes at 7. The owner of the toy store, Mr. Anthony, lets me wait here. He's nice, always shows me the new toys that come in." As if to confirm the boy's words, an elderly man appeared at the store's door, carrying 2 steaming cups. "Liam, I brought hot chocolate for you, and I see you have company today." The man smiled, handing the second cup to Michael. "I'm Anthony, the store owner. This little artist here is my most loyal customer, even though he rarely gets to buy anything." Michael accepted the cup, feeling the comforting warmth between his hands. "Michael Thompson," he introduced himself, surprised to use his last name. Something automatic after so many years of formal introductions. "Thompson? From the Thompson Group?" Anthony asked, his eyes widening in recognition. Liam, oblivious to the sudden tension in the air, continued his drawing, now adding small birds flying over the house. "Yes, but today I'm just an art admirer," Michael replied, turning his attention to the drawing. "Liam, you said you want to be an artist. What kind of art do you like the most?" The boy's face lit up at the question. "I like everything, but mostly painting people. The other day I made a portrait of my mum, and she kept it at her work. Her boss even complimented it." Michael noticed how the boy's eyes sparkled as he talked about art, reminding him of himself when he was young, before the pressures of adult life made him forget his own dreams. In his coat pocket, he felt the weight of his phone vibrating. Probably another important business call, but for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel the urgency to answer. "You know, Liam, I also had a dream when I was a kid," Michael began, surprising himself with his own words. "I wanted to be an architect, to design houses like the one you're drawing." "And why didn't you?" Liam asked with the straightforward honesty that only children possess. The question hit Michael like a punch to the gut. Why didn't you go? The reasons were many. Responsibilities, necessity, pragmatism. But looking at that boy, who created art even without the proper materials, all those justifications seemed hollow. The shop clock struck 7 when the door of the commercial building across the street opened. A young woman, probably no older than 30, hurriedly crossed the street. Her dark hair was tied up in a simple bun, and her hands, still red from work, held a worn-out bag. "Liam, sorry for the delay, son. The meeting on the top floor of the office ended up running late, and I had to wait to clean." She stopped when she saw Michael, her face already naturally tense, stiffened even more. "Good evening, sir." "Mum, look what I drew today." Liam ran up to her, pulling her by the hand to the window display. "And this is Michael, he likes art too. Helen Smith," she introduced herself formally, studying Michael with a cautious gaze. Her eyes, just like her son's, revealed a mix of exhaustion and determination. "Liam, we need to go. It's already late and you still have homework to do." Michael noticed Helen's nervousness. It was understandable, a single mother finding her son talking to a well-dressed stranger. "Mrs. Smith, your son has an impressive..." Talent, he said, maintaining a respectful distance. I was amazed by his drawings. Helen softened her expression slightly. Yes, he does. He takes after his father. Her voice faltered a little. Liam, thank the gentleman for his company, and let's go. But Mom, I haven't finished telling him about my school project yet. Can I show him, please? Helen hesitated, glancing at her watch. Michael noticed her concern and quickly intervened. How about we talk somewhere more comfortable? The cafe around the corner is still open. I'd love to hear about this project, if you'll allow it. We don't want to trouble you, Mr. Thompson, Michael Thompson, and it's no trouble at all. Recognition flickered in Helen's eyes, and she paled slightly. You're just an art admirer who stumbled upon a young talent, Michael gently interrupted. Please let me treat you to a hot chocolate. It's too cold to go home now. Mr. Anthony, who had been watching the scene from the shop door, intervened. Helen, I know Mr. Thompson by name, but I can vouch that he spent the entire afternoon here, talking to Liam about art. He's a good man. After a moment of hesitation, Helen nodded. All right, but just for a little while. Liam really needs to do his homework. At the cafe, a cozy spot with wooden tables and warm yellow lighting, Liam spread his sketchbook across the table. Michael watched in awe as the boy enthusiastically explained each piece of artwork. Helen gradually began to relax. This is my project for the school art fair. Liam pointed to an elaborate drawing. It's about the theme where we live. Everyone is drawing pretty buildings and houses, but I wanted to do something different. The drawing showed a series of small rooms, connected by stairs and hallways. In each one, people were engaged in different activities, cooking, sleeping, studying. It's the boarding house where we live, Helen explained, a blush coloring her cheeks. Liam turned our reality into art. But it's not just that, Mom, Liam continued excitedly. Look, I drew Mrs. Sophia baking bread, Mr. Joseph fixing radios, Mary studying to be a nurse. We're all one big family. Michael felt a lump in his throat. The drawing captured not only the physical structure of the place, but also the dignity and humanity of each resident. It was art in its purest sense, the ability to find beauty even in the simplest circumstances. Liam has that gift, Helen said softly, running her hand through her son's hair. But sometimes I worry. Art doesn't fill the stomach, and I want him to have a better future than... She stopped, biting her lip. Than yours, Michael completed gently. Helen nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. I've been working as a cleaner since I was 16. When Richard, Liam's father, left us, I promised myself that my son would have other opportunities. But it's hard. The rent keeps going up, school supplies are expensive, and art materials... She shrugged, a gesture that carried the weight of countless daily struggles. That night, after the meeting at the cafe, Michael couldn't sleep. Lying in his luxurious penthouse in Central Park, overlooking Central Park, his thoughts kept returning to Liam and Helen. The contrast between his world and theirs deeply troubled him. He got up and went to his private office, where an entire wall was covered with awards and recognitions. Awards that at that moment seemed devoid of meaning. He opened his laptop and began researching art incentive programs for young talents. To his surprise, he found that they were rare and, for the most part, inaccessible to low-income children. Mr. Thompson. The voice of Rachel, his secretary, surprised him the next morning. He had fallen asleep on his office desk. The Chinese investors have arrived for the rescheduled meeting. Michael straightened his wrinkled tie and tried to gather his thoughts. During the meeting, as they discussed millions in investments, his mind wandered to Liam's sketchbook. In a moment of distraction, he began to doodle in the margin of his notepad, a house with a garden like the one the boy had drawn in the storefront. Mr. Thompson, one of the investors called out, you seem distant. Is something troubling? You? Michael looked at the expectant faces around him and for the first time in his career felt completely disconnected from that world. Gentlemen, I apologize, but we will need to reschedule once again. Rachel, please reschedule for next week. I have an urgent matter to attend to. Ignoring the surprised glances, Michael grabbed his coat and left. On the way, he called his personal lawyer, Dr. Robert Miller. Robert, I need your help to structure a social project. Something focused on art and education for underprivileged children. Michael, are you okay? You've never been interested in social projects before. People change, Robert. How long does it take to set up a foundation? Months, at least. There's all the bureaucracy, documentation, approvals. I don't have months, Michael interrupted. I need something more immediate. A child can't wait for the United States bureaucracy to decide their future. There was silence on the other end of the line. Michael, what's going on? You know the legal implications of helping minors. We need to be very careful. The lawyers. Words hit him like a bucket of cold water. It was true. He couldn't just show up offering financial help to a family he barely knew. He needed to act cautiously, build trust, do things the right way. He decided to seek help from someone who knew that reality well. He returned to the toy store where Mr. Thompson was organizing a new display in the window. Mr. Thompson, what a pleasant surprise. Liam hasn't arrived yet. He usually comes after school. Actually, I came to talk to you, Michael said, helping the elderly man with a heavy box. I want to help Liam and Helen, but I don't know how to do it without seeming inappropriate. Mr. Anthony smiled understandingly. You know, I've watched that boy grow up for 5 years now. Helen is a proud woman. She doesn't accept charity, but education, that she values above all else. Do you think she would accept help for Liam's art classes? Maybe if the approach is right, but you'll need to earn her trust first. Helen has suffered a lot from empty promises. Michael nodded thoughtfully. Mr. Anthony continued, You know, I have a space in the back of the store that I use as a storage room. I was thinking of turning it into a small studio, offering art classes for the neighborhood kids. If I had a sponsor, Michael's eyes lit up, a space where Liam and other kids could develop their talents, exactly, and being a store project open to the whole community, Helen wouldn't feel embarrassed about letting Liam participate. The following weeks were filled with intense activity in the back of Mr. Anthony's store. The old storage room underwent a complete transformation. Michael hired the best professionals, but insisted on keeping everything discreet and without ostentation. The walls were painted white, large windows were installed to make the most of natural light, and wooden shelves were filled with high-quality art supplies. Easels, brushes, paints, canvases, all the best, commented Mr. Anthony, admiring the renovated space. But don't you think you're going a bit overboard? Michael smiled, adjusting the position of a drafting table. Art is no place for cutting corners, Mr. Anthony. Every brush, every color is a new possibility. I want them to have every possibility. The project was officially registered as a cultural initiative of the store, with support from the Thompson Group. Michael made sure his name appeared only as one of the sponsors, not as the main creator. The promotion was done simply. Posters in neighborhood schools announcing free art classes for children and teenagers. On the opening day, Michael watched nervously from the window of his car parked across the street. He had decided not to appear, officially, wanting to see people's genuine reactions. Helen and Liam were the first to arrive. "Mom, look at this!" Liam exclaimed, his eyes wide at the sight of the materials. "These are real brushes, and look at all the colors." Helen seemed emotional, holding one of the brochures explaining the project. "Free classes, materials included." "I can't believe it." Mr. Anthony, who would be the official administrator of the space, began welcoming other families. Within an hour, the studio was filled with admiring children and hopeful parents. The hired teacher, Paula Miller, a young artist with a degree in visual arts, won everyone over with her warm and professional demeanor. "Each of you has an artist within," Paula told the group. "Here we'll discover together what kind of artist that is." Michael noticed when Helen approached Mr. Anthony, saying something in a low voice. The elderly man smiled and replied, pointing to the Thompson Group logo in a discreet corner of the brochure. Helen looked thoughtful, gazing out the window. For a moment, Michael was sure she had seen him in his car, but she showed no sign of recognition. In the following weeks, Michael received regular updates from Mr. Anthony about the progress of the classes. Liam stood out naturally, but other children also showed surprising talents. The studio quickly became a community gathering spot. "The project is having a greater impact than we expected," Mr. Anthony remarked during one of their conversations. The kids aren't just learning art, they're building self-esteem, making friends. Even the parents are getting more involved. It was true. Helen, for example, started arriving earlier to pick up Liam, joining conversations with other parents. Gradually, a small community formed there. Mothers exchanged recipes and job tips, fathers discussed employment opportunities, and everyone helped each other in some way. Michael kept his distance but couldn't stay completely away. Sometimes he would pass by the shop pretending to be just a customer, discreetly observing the classes through the window. On one such occasion, he saw Liam teaching drawing techniques to a younger girl with the same patience and enthusiasm that Paula had shown. "He has a gift for teaching too," commented Paula, who had recognized him. "You know, Mr. Thompson, it's not just about art that's happening here. It's about giving a voice to those who never had a chance to express themselves." Michael nodded, moved. At that moment, Liam looked up from his drawing and saw him. A smile lit up his face, and he ran to the window, pressing a new drawing against the glass. It was a group portrait. All the children from the studio, their parents, Anthony, Paula, and to Michael's surprise, he himself was there, slightly apart, but definitely part of the scene. The success of the studio brought an unexpected consequence. The building where Anthony's shop was located had been sold. The new owner, a developer, planned to demolish the old building to construct a modern shopping center. The news arrived on a rainy February morning, through a formal eviction letter with a 60-day notice to vacate. "We can't lose this space," Anthony murmured, his hands trembling as he held the notice. "These children, this project, it's all that keeps me going at 70 years old." Michael, who had been immediately informed, tried to negotiate with the developer. He offered to buy the building at a price above market value, but discovered that the shopping center project had already been approved by the city. Demolition was inevitable. The news spread quickly among the families. The following afternoon, the studio was packed. Parents, children, and neighbors gathered spontaneously, all concerned about the future of the project. "It's not fair," exclaimed Liam, tears in his eyes, clutching his sketchbook. "This place is our home. Here I learned that I can truly be an artist." Helen, who rarely showed vulnerability in public, had misty eyes. "Liam has improved so much at school since he started here. All the teachers comment on how much more focused and confident he is." Paula, the art teacher, tried to stay optimistic. "We can look for another space in the neighborhood. The important thing is to keep the group together." "But where?" questioned one of the mothers. "The rents are impossible in this area, and it needs to be close so the kids can come after school." Michael watched the scene from the doorway, feeling the weight of responsibility. It wasn't just a physical space at risk. It was an entire ecosystem of dreams and possibilities that had flourished there. He saw his Anthony sitting in a corner, suddenly looking older and more tired. "Mr. Anthony," Michael approached him, "have you ever thought about retiring?" The elderly man looked up, surprised by the question. "Many times, but now with these kids, I found a new purpose. I can't abandon them. What if we could turn this into something bigger?" "How so?" Michael took a deep breath. An idea was beginning to form in his mind. It was risky. It would involve significant changes to his business plans. But for the first time in years, he felt he was about to make a truly important decision. "I have a piece of land," he began, choosing his words carefully. "It was my mother's, just a few blocks from here. I've kept it all these years, not really knowing why. Now I understand I was waiting for the right moment." Helen, who was nearby and overheard the conversation, approached hesitantly. "Mr. Thompson, are you suggesting—" "A cultural center," Michael finished. "Not just a studio, but a full space with a library, music room, theater, a place where talents can flourish, where dreams can be nurtured." The chatter in the room gradually quieted as people realized something important was happening. Liam, still holding his notebook, walked up to Michael. "Like those beautiful places downtown?" the boy asked, his eyes shining despite the tears. "Better," Michael smiled, "because this one will be ours, from our community." The land that had belonged to Michael's mother was located on a quiet street, surrounded by old houses and lush trees. It was larger than many imagined, with nearly 1,000 square meters of preserved green space. When Michael organized a visit with the studio group, the reaction was immediate. "Look, Mom, we could make a huge garden here." Liam ran across the property, already imagining the possibilities. "We could plant colorful flowers, start a vegetable garden, put benches out for people to draw outdoors." Helen watched her son with a mix of joy and concern. She approached Michael, who was talking to an architect. "Mr. Thompson, can I ask you an honest question?" She hesitated for a moment. "Why are you doing all this? There must be more profitable investments for you." Michael looked at the land, at the children running excitedly, at his Anthony explaining his ideas for the library. "You know, Helen, I spent 20 years of my life building an empire. But what's the value of all that if I can't make a difference in someone's life? Still, it's a lot of money, a lot of work. I have money. What I was missing was purpose." Michael paused, choosing his next words carefully. "My mother worked her entire life to give me an education. When she needed help, I was too busy building my company to notice. This land was her dream. She wanted to build a school here. Now I can fulfill that dream in an even more special way." The Cultural Center project began to take shape. Michael hired a team of architects specialized in educational spaces, but made sure to involve the community in every decision. Weekly meetings were held in the studio, where everyone could contribute ideas. Paula, the art teacher, suggested that the children actively participate in the creative process. They can draw how they imagine each space. This way, the architects will have a unique perspective on what truly matters to the end users. The idea was a success. Soon the studio walls were covered in colorful drawings showcasing magical libraries, music rooms with floating instruments, and gardens that seemed straight out of fairy tales. The architects, enchanted by the children's creativity, incorporated many elements from these drawings into the final design. Mr. Anthony took on the responsibility of planning the library. "Books have been my best friends throughout my life," he explained. "I want to create a space where others can discover that friendship." News of the project spread throughout the neighborhood. Volunteers began to show up. A retired woman offered to teach music classes, a group of college students proposed weekend theater workshops, and local merchants wanted to contribute materials and equipment. "It's amazing how a dream can inspire so many people," Paula commented during one of the meetings. "This project is bringing the community together in a way I've never seen before." But not everything was smooth sailing. The bureaucracy for project approval at the City Hall was complex, and some neighbors expressed concerns about the increased activity the cultural center might bring to the area. Michael spent hours in meetings, trying to resolve every obstacle that arose. One particularly difficult afternoon, after a tense meeting with city inspectors, he found Liam sitting on the stairs of the studio, drawing. "What are you doing, little artist?" Liam showed him the drawing. It was the future cultural center, but not just the building. There were people of all ages coming and going, smiling, carrying books and musical instruments. In the center of the drawing, a figure resembling Michael was holding hands with an elderly woman with white hair. "That's you and your mum," Liam explained. "The teacher said this land used to be hers, so I thought she must be really happy to see what's going to happen here." Just 2 weeks before the cultural center's opening, Helen received news that shook all their plans. The building where she worked as a cleaner was going to be sold, and the cleaning company would lose the contract. For the first time since Michael had known her, he saw her truly desperate. "I can't be unemployed right now," Helen vented during a project meeting. "Liam is so happy, so involved with all of this. How am I supposed to keep him in New York without a job? Maybe I'll have to go back to the countryside. My sister offered us a place to stay." The news hit the group like a bombshell. Liam, who was on the other side of the room putting the final touches on a collective mural, didn't hear the conversation, but noticed something was wrong from the adults' expressions. Michael felt his heart tighten. Over the past few months, the project had become much more than a charity endeavor. It had become a family. The thought of Liam and Helen leaving was unbearable. "Helen," Anthony interjected, "have you thought about working here? The cultural center will need an administrator, someone who knows the community, who can handle families. Me? But I only know how to clean. Only know how to clean? Paula chimed in. Helen, you organize all the parent meetings, manage the art studio's supply list, resolve conflicts between the kids. You're practically a manager and didn't even realize it. Michael watched the scene in silence. It was true. Helen had a natural talent for administration that he had noticed for some time. Over the past few weeks, while he dealt with the city's bureaucracy, she was the one keeping everything running day to day. Actually, Michael finally spoke, we had already discussed this in the board meeting. We wanted to make the official offer at the inauguration, but I think the moment is now. Helen, we would like you to be the administrative coordinator of the cultural center. Helen froze, her eyes welling up. But I don't have the qualifications. Qualifications can be earned, Michael smiled. We've already spoken with a partner university. You can start a cultural management course with a full scholarship. The schedule will be flexible, compatible with your work. It's not charity. Anthony quickly added, knowing Helen's pride. It's an investment. This project needs someone like you. Across the room, Liam finally approached, concerned about his mother's restrained tears. Mom, is everything okay? Helen hugged her son, smiling through tears. Yes, my love. Better than okay. In the following weeks, Helen's transformation was visible. She immersed herself in college preparatory studies with the same dedication that Liam showed in his drawings. At night, mother and son sat together at the small kitchen table in their boarding house. She with her business books, he with his sketches and paintings. The Cultural Center project was also entering its final phase. The walls were being painted, furniture was being assembled, and each space was coming to life. Michael began dedicating more time to the construction than to the group's business affairs, much to the concern of his executives. Mr. Thompson, his secretary Rachel, approached him one day. The board is questioning your personal involvement in this project. They say you're neglecting the group's priorities. Michael looked out the window of his office toward where the cultural center was being built. You know, Rachel, I spent years thinking that the priority was increasing shareholder profits. Now I understand I had it all wrong. The real priority is making a difference in people's lives. That afternoon, when he arrived at the construction site, Michael was in for a surprise. On the still under construction outer wall, a large mural was being painted. Liam, along with other children from the workshop, was working on it. Just 2 weeks before the Cultural Center's inauguration, Helen received news that shook all their plans. The building where they worked under Paula's guidance would be sold, and the cleaning company would lose its contract. The mural depicted a giant tree, its branches transforming into books, paintbrushes, musical instruments, and colorful dreams. For the first time since Michael had met her, he saw her truly desperate. I can't be unemployed now, Helen vented, during a project meeting. Liam is so happy, so involved with all of this. How am I going to keep him in New York without a job? Maybe I'll have to go back to the countryside. My sister offered us shelter. The news hit the group like a bomb. Liam, who was on the other side of the room putting the final touches on a collective mural, didn't hear the conversation, but he noticed something was wrong by the adults' expressions. Michael felt his heart tighten. Over the past few months, that project had become much more than a charity effort. It had become a family. The thought of Liam and Helen leaving was unbearable. Helen, Anthony intervened, have you thought about working here? The Cultural Center will need an administrator, someone who knows the community, who knows how to handle families. Me? But I only know how to clean. Only know how to clean, Paula chimed in. Helen, you organize all the parent meetings, manage the art studio's supply list, resolve conflicts between the kids. You're practically a manager already and didn't even realize it. Michael watched the scene in silence. It was true. Helen had a natural talent for administration that he had noticed for a while. In recent weeks, while he dealt with the city's bureaucracy, it was she who kept everything running day to day. Actually, Michael finally said, we had already discussed this at the board meeting. We wanted to extend the official invitation to you at the inauguration, but I think the moment is now. Helen, we would like you to be the administrative coordinator of the cultural center. Helen froze, her eyes welling up. But I don't have the qualifications. Qualifications can be earned, Michael smiled. We've already spoken with a partner university. You can start a cultural management course with a full scholarship. The schedule will be flexible, compatible with your work. It's not charity, Anthony quickly added, knowing Helen's pride. It's an investment. This project needs someone like you. From across the room, Liam finally approached, concerned about his mother's restrained tears. Mum, are you okay? Helen hugged her son, smiling through her tears. Yes, my love, better than okay. In the following weeks, Helen's transformation was visible. She immersed herself in preparatory studies for college with the same dedication Liam showed in his drawings. At night, mother and son would sit together at the small kitchen table in their boarding house, she with her administration books, he with his sketches and paintings. The Cultural Center project was also entering its final phase. The walls were gaining color, furniture was being assembled, and each space was coming to life. Michael began dedicating more time to the construction site than to the group's business affairs, much to the concern of his executives. Mr. Thompson, his secretary Rachel approached him one day. The board is questioning your personal involvement in this project. They say you're putting the group's priorities aside. Michael looked out the window of his office toward where the cultural center was being built. You know, Rachel, I spent years thinking that the priority was increasing shareholder profits. Now I realize I had it all wrong. The true priority is making a difference in people's lives. That afternoon, when he arrived at the construction site, Michael was in for a surprise. On the outer wall, still under construction, a large mural was being painted. Liam, along with other children from the workshop, was working on it. On the eve of the cultural center's inauguration, a special energy filled the air. The building, now fully completed, was a harmonious blend of modernity and warmth. The exterior walls, adorned with the mural created by the children, told a story of transformation and hope. The garden, designed according to Liam's drawings, was filled with colorful flowers and neatly arranged flower beds. Helen was coordinating the final preparations with a confidence that impressed everyone. In just a few months, she had transformed into a capable manager without losing the sensitivity that defined her. That morning, she was organizing the cleaning and decoration teams while checking her to-do list on a tablet, a gift from Michael for starting college. Mom, look what we made for tomorrow. Liam burst into Helen's makeshift office, carrying a folder full of drawings. Each child from the workshop made a portrait of someone important to the cultural center. We're going to have a surprise exhibition. Helena flipped through the drawings, moved. There were portraits of her Anthony among her books, of Paula teaching art, of neighbors who had helped with the construction, and of Michael at different moments. The last drawing made her pause. It was herself, portrayed by Liam, sitting at a study table with books around her and a confident smile on her face. That's how I see you now, Mom, Liam explained proudly. A woman who studies, works, and still takes care of everyone. On the other side of the building, Anthony was organizing the library, which already had over 5,000 volumes, many donated by the community. Each book had a story, as he liked to say. On the special shelves, a collection of art books awaited their young readers. I never thought I'd live to see something like this, he commented to Michael, who was helping organize the children's section. You know, when I got that eviction notice, I thought it was the end. Now I see it was just the beginning of something much bigger. Michael smiled, but his thoughts were elsewhere. The next morning, during the inauguration, he would make an announcement that would change everything. He had spent months planning, consulting lawyers, reorganizing his business life. He was nervous, but for the first time in years, he felt completely sure about a decision. Paula entered the library carrying some canvases. I need help setting up the children's exhibition, and Michael, I brought something special for you to see. It was a large canvas covered by a cloth. When Paula revealed it, Michael felt his heart stop for a moment. It was a portrait of his mother, Mrs. Angela, painted with remarkable delicacy. The reference had been the old photograph he kept in his office. Liam borrowed the photo a few weeks ago, Paula explained. He worked on this every day after school. He said he wanted his mom to be present tomorrow. Michael gently touched the screen, recognizing every detail of his mother's face. The gentle smile, the kind eyes, even the small necklace she never took off. Everything was there, captured through the sensitive gaze of a child who had never met her but understood her importance. There's one more thing, Paula continued, handing Michael an envelope. The kids wrote letters to be buried in a time capsule in the garden. Liam insisted that you read his first. Michael carefully opened the envelope. Liam's handwriting, still childlike but painstakingly neat, covered 2 pages. Dear Michael, before I met you, I thought dreams were just things we think about when we're asleep. Now I know that dreams are things we make happen when we're wide awake. You taught me that. When I grow up, I want to be like you, not because of the money or the big buildings, but because you know how to turn drawings into reality. You took my drawing from that store window and turned it into this amazing place where everyone can dream together. But the most important thing was what you did for my mom. She smiles a lot more now, you know. And when she studies at night, with that focused look on her face, I draw her like this so I never forget how strong and happy she became. The day of the inauguration dawned with a bright sun, as if the sky itself wanted to join the celebration. Early in the morning, people arrived at the cultural center. Families from the neighborhood, officials, journalists, all curious to see the project that had transformed that part of the city. The building shone. The children's mural on the facade caught the attention of everyone passing by, and the garden, with its freshly planted flowers, emitted a fragrance that made the atmosphere even more special. At the entrance, a simple banner announced, Angela, Thompson Cultural Center, where dreams gain colors. Helen, impeccable in her first executive suit, a gift from the other mothers in the project, greeted the guests with natural ease. Liam, wearing a new blue shirt, couldn't tear himself away from the art exhibit, proudly showing visitors the works he and his classmates had created. Mr. Anthony, in the library, proudly presented each section, every book carefully chosen. The children's area, decorated with colorful cushions and low shelves, was already full of kids exploring the illustrated books. Michael watched everything from the second floor, next to the portrait of his mother painted by Liam. He adjusted, his tie nervous. In just a few minutes, he would deliver the opening speech and make the big announcement that would not only change his life, but also the future of many people. It's time, Paula called softly. Everyone is waiting. On the makeshift stage in the garden, Michael looked out at the audience. He saw familiar and unfamiliar faces, all united by the same feeling of hope. He took a deep breath and began. A few months ago, I stopped in front of a toy store and saw a boy drawing on the window. He drew a house with a garden, a place where dreams could bloom. At that moment, I didn't know that drawing would change my life forever. His eyes found Liam in the audience, who was smiling next to Helen. This cultural center was born from a dream, not just mine, but an entire community's. Every person here today has contributed in some way, with work, with ideas, with hope, but most of all with love. And that's why today we're not just opening a building, we're celebrating the birth of a family. Michael paused, reaching the crucial moment. That's why I have 2 important announcements. First, starting today, the Thompson Group will allocate 30% of its annual profits to create similar cultural centers in other communities. Each center will be managed locally, like this one, by people from the community itself. A murmur of surprise swept through the audience. And secondly, I am stepping away from the presidency of the Thompson Group to dedicate myself fully to this project. The company will continue under the management of competent professionals, but my place is here with you, building dreams. Helen brought her hands to her mouth, surprised. Liam, beside her, had shining eyes. This cultural center bears the name of my mother, Angela Thompson. She always said that education and art are the greatest legacies we can leave. It took me a while to understand that, but now I know she was right. True wealth isn't in buildings or bank accounts. It's in the smiles of children discovering a new book, in the gleaming eyes of those who achieve a dream, in the embrace of a community coming together to grow. Michael stepped down from the stage amid emotional applause. He went straight to Helen and Liam, who were waiting for him with smiles on their faces. "So, you're staying?" asked Liam, hopeful. "I am. I have a lot to learn from a certain artist." "Who knows the power of dreams?" Michael replied, affectionately ruffling the boy's hair. Helen, with tears in her eyes, held Michael's hand. "Thank you for teaching us that it's never too late to start over." "No," Michael smiled, looking at the portrait of his mother through the window. "Thank you for teaching me that there's always time to fulfill dreams that got lost along the way." The cultural center was officially open, but that was just the beginning. In the years that followed, thousands of children would discover their talents and dreams there. Liam would become a recognized artist and teacher at the cultural center. Helen would complete her education and help implement the project in other communities. And Michael finally would find the peace he had long sought. On the wall of his new office, next to the portrait of his mother, he hung Liam's original drawing, that house with a garden in the foggy window, the first stroke of a dream that transformed not just a community, but also his own heart.